Hey, new law students, obviously you'll be studying many cases during your legal studies. So the sooner you learn the anatomy of a case or the structure of a case, then the sooner you will settle into your learning and you'll fast track your way to your best grades possible. So let's go. Let's jump in now and have a look at a few different case examples. And I have 3 cases available for us to have a look at during this video. I will leave the full case citation on the screen and also in the description of the video. Now, I also just want to mention that I'm based in Australia, and the 3 cases that I've got open today have been escalated up through to the High Court. Let's have a look at the first part of a case, and that is the header right up at the top of the page. So normally you would have up in the top of your case document, in this area up here, you'd have the law report series mentioned, and you'll either see the full wording for the law report series or you'll just see the abbreviation, and you'll see the year of the case and the page number. Now, having said that though, sometimes it can vary a little bit. Now, in this example here, you can see that we just have CLR, so that's Commonwealth Law Report, which is an authorised law report here in Australia. And let's have a look over on the other cases to see how it displays the name of the law report. So here you can see it's actually got the full wording. So Commonwealth Law Reports, we can see up the top. Let's have a look at our last case example, which is also a CLR report. And now again, like our first example, you can see it's just got abbreviation CLR. So let's go back to our first case again. And then normally you would also see the volume number of that law report in the header as well. So here I can see 151, that is the volume number of this CLR law report, and over here we also have the page number. Notice in this example we actually don't see the volume number of that law report in the header on page 1, but let's just scroll down and now I can see 250, yes, that is the volume number for this case in the CLR report series. And this 393 is the page number. All right, so don't get tripped up on that because that can easily be done. And over here, as we said, you've got the year of the case. But let's have a look at our other case examples. So here we've got the volume number for the CLR, and we've also got the page number. So let's just scroll down and double check that. Okay, yes. And then here we've got the year of the case. So in this example, we don't have the year of the case up here in the header on page 1, but we do down here. Now, if I keep scrolling down, you'll notice that what's in the header may alternate every second page. So notice here you've got the year of the case and the page number. Let's keep scrolling down. In the header here, we now have it switched to the volume number of the law report series. We've still got the page number there, and now it's reverted back again. So yeah, just be conscious of that. You will see that formatting changing on every second page. The next part of the case is you need to check which court that the judgment was held in. In this example here, we can see it's outlined up the top, High Court of Australia. And over in this case here, it's formatted a bit differently. We can see it says HCA over here, High Court of Australia, and it's also over here on the sidebar. The next part of the case is to look at the party names. And of course, this can either be people, companies, or government bodies on either side of the case. So the party names in our first High Court case example is, we can see here, the Commercial Bank of Australia Limited. They are the appellants, and it is against Amadio and another, who are the respondents. Now, but notice here that it also says here defendant underneath the Commercial Bank of Australia Limited, and under here it says plaintiffs. under Amadio. So that is because that was the roles that these parties played in the previous trial case in the first instance. So don't get tripped up on that. You will need to just make sure that you're aware of any previous litigation history. Let's go over and have a look at our last example. And here it's a little bit different because there's actually two cases being held jointly, and that is because they are looking at the same legal issue across these two cases. So don't let that trip you up as well. So here we've got Smith, who is the appellant, and Queen, who is the respondent, but being shown at the same time is the Queen, who is the appellant, against of Afford, who is the respondent. All right, so that's a quick walkthrough and some examples of the party names and their roles. The next part of the case to look at is, if it's an appeal case, is to see where the case has been appealed from. And that is normally outlined underneath the party names. So in the Amadio case, we can see this particular appeal case is on appeal from the Supreme Court of South Australia. And over in the Kakavas case, this one we can see here is on appeal from the Supreme Court of Victoria. And in my last case example, we can see here it is on appeal from the Supreme Courts of New South Wales and Victoria. The next part of the case is an extremely helpful part of the case, and that is known as the catchwords. And the catchwords are just placed normally down here, and they are usually in italics and also separated by these dashes. So the catchwords really provide you a very short, succinct summary of the legal subject matter that's covered in this case. So it's normally an excellent starting point to glance your eyes over to get a grasp of what is covered in the case. So in the Kakavas case, here they are. Here's the catchwords here. And in the last example, I can see the catchwords down here, and that also gives me a nice summary of what this case is about. Moving on to the next part of a case, and that is the headnotes. And the headnotes usually sit underneath the catchwords. So the headnotes are a summary of the facts of the case and include also the decision of the court and also the legal reasons from the court for the decision. And it might also point towards other important cases and legislation referenced in the case. So now it's important to remember that the headnotes, though, are not considered part of the court's decision and are therefore not authoritative. So you shouldn't really be referring to the headnotes via any pinpoints in any of your assignments. You will definitely need to refer to the actual judgments, which come later in the case document. All right, so that's a really important thing to remember. So the headnotes can be useful to really orientate yourself to the case, but the legal issue in the case is more complex and nuanced than what can be summarized in the headnotes. All right, so it would be very dangerous to rely purely on the catchwords and the headnotes. You would definitely need to read further into the judgments for details for your legal authority and all of the various arguments. Now, the headnotes are traditionally only available in law report series and are added by the report publisher. All right, so in these examples that I've got here today, these are CLR reports, and so they are the ones that have produced these headnote details. Now, what you might also notice in unreported judgments, you may find that in those cases there are no headnotes. All right, so that's just something to be aware of. In some cases, the headnotes can actually go over multiple pages. For example, in this situation, and in this case, this is where the actual judgments begin, and I can see via the paragraph numbers as well. And in the Amadio case, let's have a look at the headnote. So we can see the headnote starts here, just below the catchwords. and it goes down to here, and we can see this is where the judgment is actually starting. And the next part of a case to be conscious of is if there's any information in the margin of the case document, either on the right or the left-hand side. If there are, quite often you'll see that there's the court. So I can see here, this is the High Court of Australia. It's got the year and also the date that the judgment was held. And also you may see the actual list of who the judges were. And moving on to the next part of the case, and that is the actual written judgments. So the written judgments of the court can be preceded by phrases similar to what you see on the screen here. The following written judgments were delivered, and then usually the commencement of a judgment is indicated by the actual judge's name or names if it's a joint judgment, or the court if all the judges hearing the case have cooperated on one judgment and therefore are making a unanimous decision. So let's scroll down and take a quick look at this particular judgment by Justice Gibbs. Keep an eye out in the margin. I find this very helpful. So normally when you're navigating through the various judgments, you'll see the name of the judge either on the right-hand side margin or the left-hand side margin. So that's extremely helpful for you to remember. I'll just keep scrolling down. And Justice Mason. So now we can see, all right, we have moved on to Justice Mason, but I missed where he started. So I scroll back up and we are starting with Justice Mason. So Mason starts there and we can see we are still on his judgment and so on. And just jumping across to the Kakavas case, let's have a look and see where their judgment starts. And this is where it starts. But this was a unanimous judgment because it says the court delivered the following written judgment. So definitely keep a note of that. If it's individual judgments or a joint judgment or a unanimous judgment like this one. And of course, you can see here the paragraph numbers. So that will be critical for any referencing in your written papers. The last few sections of the case that I just want to finish off with is often at the end you will find the court's conclusion and orders, and you will also find who the legal representative or appearances were delivered by. Now you may find that in some law report series these details are at the end of the case, while in other law report series this type of detail can be included towards the beginning of the case in the headnotes. Alrighty, I think we're finished. Hopefully now you feel a little bit more confident about navigating your cases. I'll see you next time.